turns out there's like a lot of physicians that like live and go to restaurants around there because Norfolk General's right there. So I was interested in neurosurgery, and I would just talk to anybody who was sitting next to me. And so at the time, I was interested in neurosurgery. I was interested in orthopedic surgery. I knew I wanted to do spine surgery. I thought I knew I wanted to do spine surgery. So I was just sitting there, and I would talk to somebody, and then I was talking to this girl I knew who bartended there, and we were just talking about, she asked me how I was doing in OChem. I said it was doing great. And this lady sitting next to me said, oh yeah, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a doctor. Well, what kind of doctor to be? Oh, I want to be, a spine surgeon. She's like, oh, my husband's a spine surgeon. I'll put you in contact. So we get in contact. I go and shadow him through that kind of de novo kind of way. And then not even 3 weeks later, I was sitting at the same Luna Maya, talking to a lady sitting next to me. An older woman, she was a real estate agent. And she was actually, the common questions people ask about yourself, what do you do? Blah, blah, blah. So I'm a student, I'm studying, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a spine surgeon. Oh, well, my client come in as a spine surgeon. So there's not that many spine surgeons in Norfolk, in Virginia, right? So this guy is another guy, Dave Vincent. Dave Vincent, helped me out. And I was kind of poor when I was going to medical school, and I didn't realize when I was moving. And so I shadowed him for a long time, and when I was moving, I didn't realize that in Boston, if you want to move into a place, they want 4 months rent up front and rent. In that place, for a one-bedroom at the time, it was $2,500. So people wanted a $10,000 check right up front. I wasn't prepared to do that and move all of my stuff and everything. So I needed a $5,000 loan. David's like, oh, don't worry about it. I don't have parents that can lend me $5,000. Yeah, just, whatever. Write you a check, come over, whatever. He wrote me a check, $5,000. I was there, sitting in the same restaurant, and I was thinking about ophthalmology for a little bit, and I said I was thinking about ophthalmology. I was going to medical school as a oculoplastic surgeon the same way. My point is that you should talk to people. You should talk to each other. You never know, when you're sitting down at a restaurant or whatever, who can help you. I think I was just lucky, but at the same time, and I probably was eating at the right restaurant, at the same time, you never know what way somebody can benefit you, and what way you might be able to help them. And so, it's great to have a network, and I just want to reinforce that. The other thing I want to reinforce for those people who were not here yesterday, I just want a brief introduction to myself. My name is Devon Taylor. I was in class of 2012 at Old Dominion. I do this because I'm really passionate about getting you guys in medical school. It bothered me, when I was here, 10 or 11 people per year. I heard this year was much, much better. But 10 or 11 people per year got into medical school. In a school of 26,000 people. To me, that was unacceptable. I came in with a pretty robust plan because I did a lot of planning before we talked yesterday about all of that. I got some mentorship and all of that. But other people didn't have so robust of a plan, and they missed many, many hoops. So we talked about that all yesterday, but for me it's this. I come to help you guys have all of the tools you need to get into medical school. I am not a replacement for your mentors. I'm not a replacement for the pre-health advisors and that whole committee. I'm not a replacement for any of those people. Everyone has their own individual roles. I come as more kind of ancillary staff, unpaid, to help you guys out, because I really, 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 I mean this from the bottom of my heart. When I go to the conference at the American Medical Association, people get together with people who are alumni of the same school, and they go have drinks and they do things like that. And it's rare that I ever meet a person at a conference, or I have never met a person at a conference who went to Old Dominion University and is a physician. And a lot of my colleagues cannot say that. There's many in the same class. And it's not because you guys are not, smart enough. It's not because you guys are good enough. And I'm convinced that it's because you just had there are varying degrees of privilege and opportunity. And people who tend to go here tend to be people who grew up with fewer opportunities and fewer privileges. I think that's well accepted. I think most people come from working class families. Their parents were not Steve Jobs or anybody like that. So, I try to kind of bridge that gap, and I realized in my time at this kind of esteemed place where, 5 generations, where I go to school and my classmate is Lydia Flyer, who's Dean Flyer's daughter, and where you have people who their father went to Harvard Medical School and their father's father went to Harvard Medical School. Not a lot of mothers, because back then not a lot of women went to medical school. I think it's one of the great advances in medicine that our classes are 50-50. In fact, the last 2 classes we admitted at our school have been more women than men. Anyway, so I just wanted to get you guys in medical school. I want to help you. I want to give you the school. So yesterday was a bit of an overview. It was a lot of the do's and don'ts. Today's going to get a little more into the nitty-gritty details of I think the commonly screwed up processes in the pre-med experience. So these are the places where people trip and fall the most, and these are the places where they're the most. I talked about Dr. Brunfeld's unknown unknowns. Unknown unknowns. These are the things you don't know that you don't know, and so you can't possibly, even if you're trying your hardest, do them correctly if you don't know that you don't know you need to be doing those things. So I'm trying to get you through this process with a lot of the things today. So the first thing we're going to do is the MCAT. Everyone is afraid of the MCAT. I was scared shitless of the MCAT when it came, when I was here. I put it off and put it off and put it off and put it off, and I studied and I studied and studied. Never felt ready. I felt a little more ready, and then I took it because I was told by a very wise gentleman who also was a graduate. It was one of my undergraduate mentors. He also was a graduate of Harvard Medical School. He was the president of the American College of Surgeons at the time. L.D. Moretti is over at UVMS. African-American gentleman who was a mentor of mine. And he told me, don't take the MCAT until you're ready. Doesn't matter what anybody tells you, you have to take it early. Like I told you yesterday, you mustn't take it until you're ready. People will tell you you must take it early. You must take it early if you're ready to take it early. But if you're not ready, you mustn't take it because it can have the potential to ruin you if you don't do markedly better on the second attempt. So here's the MCAT. So here's a little cartoon. I know no one can read it. Let's see. So it says, what is the product of the following Diels-Alder reaction, if you guys remember those kinds of things. And so I think this is the way a lot of the people study, and it's very frustrating because these little tiny kind of trivial knowledge actually that will never be really important when you're a physician. But these Diels-Alder reactions, they'll never be important when you're a physician, but can feel like real stumbling blocks. But it's important to realize that, like, if you do get a question on a Diels-Alder reaction on your test, it will be one question. You may get many questions on many other things. So I'm going to give you a kind of a program to go through. And I promise you, I mean, I can put a guarantee on this. I promise you, if you do this, you will do well enough to go to medical school. Period. End of story. I mean, I really will guarantee that. I need you to buy into it, though. I've advised many people, and I can tell you I've seen people go from, my best case was a guy who had a 14 on the MCAT and got a 34 on his next MCAT. He followed this process. I tutor. I've studied studying. I've studied education. I did a lot of. I was certified when I was in the Navy. I was certified as a master training specialist. So I train people in operating nuclear power plants in the Navy. But I learned how to teach, and I learned how to study. Most importantly, something I never knew as a kid, and I think it's something most people don't know. So what most people do on the MCAT is they have done well, and I kind of said this yesterday. For those of you that are here, I'm sorry. For those of you who are here, I'm sorry to repeat this. What most people do is say, "Oh, I did great in MCAT. I did great in physics. I did that by doing X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to do great on the MCAT by doing X, Y, and Z." And that is not going to do it. It's just not going to work. You will not do well. You won't do well. And you're going to have to resist the urge because everything inside of you, when you take that first practice test and you take it, like everyone does. My very first practice test, I got a 14, I think, or a 15. Something along those lines. Everyone does poorly because it's not testing your knowledge of these disciplines. It's testing your ability to take this test. That's the only thing it's testing, is the ability to take this test. So you have to have baseline knowledge. So I'm going to take you through the process. So first of all, I don't know what's on the new MCAT because I've never seen the new MCAT. However, I know that's the burning question in everyone's mind. So the official guide to the MCAT exam, MCAT 2015, on the AMC's website. This is just a screenshot right from there, chopped out. That is going to tell you it'll give you line item by line item what the topics are for sociology and psychology, all of that on the MCAT. I don't know if there's biostats and biochem, but there are some other things on there, but this will tell you what those things are. What I can tell you though, is from being on an admissions committee, we've already talked about what we're going to do about this. And the fact is, the answer is we don't know. And like other things that were on there, like I remember back when I took it, there was a verbal reasoning section. It didn't really matter. Okay? Not saying that these other things don't matter. You should focus on them. But what I will tell you is there's going to be a high degree of variability. There's going to be people who soar in the sciences and don't do as well on sociology and psychology, but they're still going to get into the top places because these places there's going to be so much variability, admissions committees are going to not know what to do with it. So what I would say is, just my gut is, and I can't tell you this off of evidence, but my gut is that you'd be best spending the preponderance of your time studying the things that we've been testing for years and years, which are the gold standard, which are your physics, your chemistry, your OChem, your bio, okay? We're going to get you through that. All right, so step one, learn as much as you can in class, period. Do as well as you can in class. One, because it gets you grades. And if you have good grades, like I told you yesterday, you might have a little buffer on the MCAT. You will have a little buffer on the MCAT. If you have good grades in the sciences, you will have a buffer on the MCAT. People are going to say, well, that private person probably had a bad testing day. We're going to give them benefit of the doubt. If the person has bad grades in class and has bad grades in the MCAT, we're going to say, well, that MCAT score is in line with their performance in their science classes. I mean, that's almost, like I said yesterday, it's common sense rationale. We're thinking we're human beings just like everyone else. We're thinking like you guys. We're thinking like everyone else. So you just put yourself in the positions of an admissions person and say, hey, what are they going to think? Step two, purchase one. I put it in one. Say it with me. One central text. One. Don't purchase every study guide out there because you don't have time to read all of them. Purchase one central text. This is the one I recommend, and I recommend it for a specific reason. This doesn't have every single thing in it. It's not, it says complete study package. It's not 100% comprehensive, but it distills it down to the thing. These things are going to be tested. These things are going to be tested, and there are some things that are a little more esoteric that might not be tested. And they even put a section, they stop it, and they say these things are basically 100% you're going to get tested, and these things have been on one or two tests in the past several years or whatever. And so they even put a marker in there about what's the most high yield, what you absolutely need to know. Because your brain is only like so big. Your brain is only so big. You can't consume all kinds of information. You can't know everything. So it gives you the high yield points because in reality, I care a lot in medicine. The people writing this test are medical professionals. We care a lot about osmotic pressure because guess what? Everything you learn about in the kidney and when you give IV fluids and blah, blah, blah has everything to do with osmosis and osmolality and osmolarity and, semi-permeable membranes and blah, blah. That stuff we use every single day. We have to think about every single day. In fact, on paper and pencil, we calculate how much we're going to change the osms of the serum when we give X amount of fluid. That's how important that is. So there's nobody that's taking an MCAT that's not going to have questions like that on their test because that's important. But we don't, in medicine, fly jet planes. So if you're not likely to get a test question on lift when lift is not something that you use in medicine. So if you spend your time just studying all the physics that you learned, you're not being very efficient. So one central text, you can't, and there are other texts, you can pick another one. They're more comprehensive, but you're going to spend a lot of time learning things that are not likely to be tested. And the fact of the matter is the trick on the MCAT is to not miss the easy questions. You cannot miss easy questions because no one else is missing easy questions. The people who are getting into medical school are not missing the easy questions. You can miss hard questions because if everyone misses them, then it doesn't matter. If you take a test and everyone misses it, you're still at the top, right? So you have to focus on the basics. You have to focus on the things you cannot miss. This is more than the basics. It's pretty comprehensive. But I'm going to tell you what to do to solve the problem of it not being 100% comprehensive. Okay. Step 3, review the central text. So this is the first step. You're going to buy the central text. You're going to review the central text. You're going to go all the way through it. You're going to do some practice questions from the back and all that. You're going to go all the way through. You're going to make yourself a study plan. Try to get through it in a few weeks, 3 weeks in the summer or whatever. Try to get through it, okay? The entire central text. Next, take a practice test. So, for the new test, there's only one practice test, which is unfortunate. But there are other practice tests offered by the AAMC. This is on the AAMC's website. There's only one official eMCAT. If you go on the eMCAT website, you should look at that. Official MCAT practice site. Again, common theme from yesterday, AAMC, the accrediting organization. All your answers are there. You should be thoroughly familiar with the pre-medical section of the AAMC website or else you're behind. You're going to be behind. So you should be thoroughly familiar with everything on there. Look through every link that seems relevant to you. So the eMCAT practice test, you can take the practice test. There are old practice tests from the way the test used to be written without the psychology and the sociology sections that I think would be very useful. So I would, and they're on this website, so you can pick any of those tests. I would pick the one that has everything in it and take it. And then hang your head in shame when you don't do well. Like everyone doesn't do well. But it needs to be motivating, okay? So I'm going to tell you, everyone does poorly on their first practice test. So don't let it kill you, okay? Just go in there, you've reviewed all the material, so you're like, oh yes, I've done all of exam crackers. Like three weeks of exam crackers, I take the test. And I do poorly. What the hell is going on? It's going to happen. It's going to happen, okay? Just gear up for it right now. So that's step 4. Step 5, review the practice test. So when you review the practice test, I want you to review the questions you got right and the questions you got wrong. And every single answer, whether it's right or wrong, why it's right, why it's wrong. So there's 5 choices, A, B, C, D, E, and you got the question right, and the answer is C. Why is question A wrong? Why is answer B wrong? Why is answer C wrong? Why is answer D wrong? Why is answer E wrong? You learn from that as well. So you need to review whether you got it right or wrong. You need to review every single question on the test. There's a lot of very important information, and there's a solution, and they tell you why every answer is right or wrong. Okay, so that's important. Now, you meticulously go through all questions and answers. That's step 6. That's what I just told you. Okay, you go through all questions and all answers, regardless of whether you got it wrong. Then, what you do, this first time and first time only, okay, you're going to read the sections on the things you got wrong. And when I mean sections, I don't mean, oh, I got this thing in thermodynamics wrong called the Rankine cycle. I'm going to read all of thermodynamics. No. You read the 1 or 2 paragraphs because you've already read everything. You've already read this book before you take the test. You read the 1 or 2 paragraphs that are germane to that question, period, and that question alone. You do not go to your textbooks. You go to this book. If it is not in this book, you go to a textbook and then you annotate this book. But only if they've asked you a question about it. Only if the practice test has asked you a question about it and it's not in this book, do you look it up on the internet or somewhere else and you annotate this book. You write it in the book. Okay? Write it in the book. You're reading the sections you got wrong. Step 8. Purchase a question bank. There are many question banks out there. There's the Kaplan question bank. There's the M-Prep question bank. There are tons of question banks. Purchase, I think the Kaplan is only 200 questions. I would purchase a lot of them. I would just I would get all the practice questions I could get, because that's how you get good. Anybody here play an instrument? Okay. Can you read in a book how to play an instrument? What do you have to do to play an instrument? You have to play the instrument. Can you read in a book how to take the MCAT? No. You have to take MCAT-like questions over and over and over and over again. Once you've done that first review, you should be spending the vast majority of your time doing questions. Doing questions, not reading. If you find yourself reading greater than 30-40% of the time, reading that's not actually on this screen, like right here, this has an explanation. You can read that explanation. That's considered doing questions. If you read about this question in a book, that's reading. If you're spending any more than 30% of your time, because you should be able to get this and just read it and understand. But if you can't, you go back to the central resource only, and you look at it. But you shouldn't be spending any more than 30 or 40% of your time reading. You should be spending the preponderance of it doing questions. Okay? Trust me. I taught for Princeton Review in the MCAT. I think this. I'm going to tell you, I just think this, if you're motivated, the thing that these prep classes are taking a tangent, but the thing that these prep classes give you, for a lot of people, the value they give you is making you do something. It's going to make you study. You paid $1 bajillion to go have a medical student stand up there and tell you about the MCAT. And then they give you assignments, and we, ask you to come, prepare for this, prepare for that, do this, do that. And so it's regimented. If you can save yourself, a couple $1,000s if you can convince yourself and really make yourself be regimented. And think about it as you're saving yourself a couple $1,000s. I think that is the value added for those things. And for some people, that's exactly what you need. So know thyself, as Socrates says. Know thyself. If you're the person that needs that, I say the classes are totally worth it. Other than that, you learn by doing. Because you're going to spend a lot of time in those classes. I'm going to be going over basics. How did I say people do well? They don't miss the easy questions. So in class, we go over the basics. And a lot of the basics, you're going to know. So you're going to spend a lot of time in class learning things you already know, which is a waste of your time. Okay? So, purchase a question bank, go through this, questions. Sorry for the tangent, I just wanted to say that. All right. Use the question bank section by section. Don't go through the whole question bank. The question bank can be broken down into like thermodynamics or physics. It can be like thermodynamics, electricity and magnetism, blah, blah, blah. You go through every section. You want to go through every section by section. And you want to do all the questions in thermodynamics, and then all the questions in electricity and magnetism, all the questions and whatever. That's the way you do it. Okay? That's better because you synthesize, you're learning the same thing, and your brain can really make these synapses and kind of correlate these things, and you're not lost in the weeds. Okay, it's not just one isolated question, it's a whole group of questions on something. So when you're going through the question bank, I would separate the questions that are under a specific topic and go through those. Okay? All right. Now, so this is after the first, remember, so all of this is after the first test that you've taken. This is the very first practice test. You haven't taken another practice test yet. All right. Now, step 10, take another practice test. Now this whole game has changed. All right? You should do better on this practice test. If you're not, you need to evaluate, why you're not doing well. Most of the time, you're not studying hard. You're not doing the thing you're supposed to do. You're listening to music while you study. And your brain can only concentrate on one thing. You can't have full concentration on what you're reading when you're listening to music. It's not possible. It's literally not possible. Unless you're meditating on the words on the page. And then you literally don't hear the music, so there's no point in having it. It's the only way. If you're in this state of meditation or prayer over the book, which is the way we've seen it scientifically, where somebody can focus basically 100%, then you don't hear the music anyway, so the music is doing you no good. So that's, it's a study habit that a lot of people do. I think it takes away from your ability to learn, okay? All right, so step 11, you've taken the practice test. You're going to repeat steps 5 through 7, which are A, grade the test, B, review all of the questions and answers, whether you got them right or wrong, and then, after you've done that, only the ones that you got wrong are you going to look in here, right? The ones that where you need the source. You're going to go to the ones you got wrong. This is the second test now. The ones you got wrong, and look those up, okay? Does that make sense? Does that make sense to everyone? Or do I need to repeat myself? All right, so that's the second test. All right, now, you've reviewed the whole test. Now, here's the hard part. Here's the part where everyone screws it up. They don't listen. Because they get a bad score, again. So they got the first one, it's a 15. And they got the second one, it's a 19. They're like, I'm an idiot. I can't do, I'm never going to do it. I need to review everything again. So you review everything. And that's the wrong way. Why? Because I told you before that this test is about not missing the easy stuff. And the sections you did the worst on are the ones you missed the easy questions. So reviewing, when you're pretty good at thermodynamics, reviewing thermodynamics again, but you got a bad grade in the physics, but you're pretty good at electricity and magnetism, and you're pretty good at thermodynamics. Reviewing that is a waste of time. Because, yeah, you might miss a really hard question, but you're not going to miss any of the easy questions. So you need to focus on, and when you get your score out, it'll tell you what you did the worst on. It's going to tell you what percentage of what type of question you did poorly on. So you find on the little bar graph, the little 25% of things you did worst on, 25, 30%, something like that. Study only those things. How do you study those things? Somebody tell me how you study those. Huh? Not your central text. Questions. You study with questions. So you do questions, only the questions from the question bank, right there. The question bank, you say, okay, well, I did really crappy on my basic cellular processes. So I need to study basic cellular processes by doing questions on basic cellular processes. Okay? You don't study by going back and reading everything in the book on basic cellular processes. Don't do it. You're going to have the urge. Your body's going to tell you because that's the way you learn how to take a test in organic chemistry or biology. It doesn't work for this. It doesn't work for this. You're learning how to take the test. 25%, bottom 25%, go to the question bank. Do all the question banks. The parts you don't get still, if you still don't understand the explanation, then you can go back to your central text and figure it out. Okay? Does that all make sense? Any questions about that? All right. And this thing is cool because it also has, like, when you're at the gym, it has this, like, osmosis thing, which is basically, it has MP3s that you can just, listen to while you're at the gym or while you're, getting ready for school or whatever, or while you're chilling, while you're, on the way to the club. It gets you in club zone. So, it's a pretty good, I think it's a pretty good resource. So, anyway, step 13, take another practice test. After you've done that, you studied only the bottom 25% of things you did the worst on. You take another practice test. You've gone through all of those things. You've gone through all of these, a series of questions in the question bank. You take a different practice test. Then repeat. Repeat, 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 repeat. Repeat as many times as you need to until you get to where you need to be on the practice test, where you want your score to be, because you mustn't take the practice test. You mustn't take the MCAT until you're doing well on the practice test. Period. Full stop. That's it. There's nothing magical about it. This is the process. This is the process. I promise you, if you do this for the DAT, if you do this for the MCAT, if you do this for the PCAT, if you do this for any of these kinds of tests, you will do well. You will do well because the magic is learning how to take a test. This kind of test. The magic is not being a genius in your physics professor could go take an MCAT test and might not do well on the physics portion of the MCAT test because they haven't taken this test. It's an exercise in learning the patterns that are the way that these questions are asked. Okay? Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about any of that? Go ahead. There are. Yes, the question was, if you've done all the practice tests, is it acceptable to go back to number one? Absolutely. Now you have to be a data analyzer and think, oh, well, you know, I have a little bit of memory. You know, every time you see something, it's stored there forever. Might not be able to access it that easily. So, you know, you have to take that grade with a grain of salt, kind of validate that. Does that make sense? Yes. It can be, no, it's not a textbook. It's an MCAT prep book. So I recommend exam crackers. And I told the class why. That ask somebody after, they'll tell you why. That I recommend exam crackers. Exam crackers is really, really, really the best one. For a lot of reasons, but it breaks things down in layman's terms. It highlights all the things you need to know. It says this is super important. It's been on every single MCAT since the MCAT was born. You know what I mean? You have to know this. These are things that, oh, it'd be nice to know. You might do a little bit better. These are things that, like, you might get an answer, a question on. You know, it does all that for you. It does all the thinking for you. They've done the research. They send people to take these tests, and they come back and they scribble down like everything that was on the MCAT. And that's how they make their book. It's based on what these people ask. So it really is a good book.
Do you know if they have that for the new MCAT?
So I don't know, but I'm sure everyone's trying to be in the game, right? I mean, unless they don't like money, I'm sure that they're doing it. And I'm sure a company, I mean, CEO's not going to stay around long. They don't like money. This is like the first rule of business: make money. So that's what they do. So, all right. Things not to do. Panic. Don't panic. It will get better. It will start out bad. You will cry. You will cry. If you're a crier, you will cry. You will say, I am so stupid. And it's not true. Everyone does this. You haven't learned how to take the test. Don't do everything over and over. Don't do everything. The key word, operative word, everything over and over. Don't do everything. Do the things that you're the worst at. And then the next time you're going to take the test, you're going to realize, oh, I didn't do so poorly on this thing that I was really doing bad on last time. I've gotten better. But now there's this new thing that it's poor. With respect to the other things that that I'm doing, and all of my grades are just coming up. Because you're still touching on those other subjects when you take the test and you review the whole test. You're still touching on the things you're good at. So you're still learning something about them. That's the way you do it. Oh, I didn't say the last thing, and I didn't put it in this thing. There's a big error on my part. So the last week, before the test is done, so once you said, okay, you schedule to take your last practice test at least a week, maybe 10 days before your test date. Before your test date, the last practice test. And that's the go, no go. Am I going to take the test? Am I not going to take the test? If you're not within a point or two from where your goal is, don't take the test. Period. Because those tests are good. Those practice tests predict scores. A point or two. In those last 10 days, that's your opportunity to cram, all flashcards, all the things you want to do the whole time, which is useless. It's useless. All things you want to do the whole time are great for short-term 10 days. You can remember something you saw on a flashcard 7 days ago. You will never remember it something you saw on a flashcard 3 months ago. It's not going to happen. Your brains aren't built that way. Okay? So, flashcards, all of that last week, that cram. Okay? I'm going a little longer than I planned to on this, but I think this is really, really, really important. This is the thing that keeps ODU students from going to medical school. Period. Full stop. This is it. This is it. This is what keeps you from, this is what stands between you and becoming a physician. So I hope you paid attention, and I hope you follow this plan. Because I'm telling you, if this room of people follow the plan, there's going to be a lot of ODU docs. Period. I hope that you do that. All right? Don't study, like I said, I've already reinforced this. Don't study primarily by reading. Don't take the test when you're not ready. And don't skip any of the steps. If the system doesn't work, I can't guarantee. Now they put on the label. I can't guarantee if you don't use as directed. I cannot guarantee good results if you don't use as directed. That's it. If you do this, you'll do well. If you don't, you could still do well. But I'm not making any guarantees, okay? So that's that. All right. A couple, because that's way too long. Yes, sir.
Is it possible?
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Is it possible to start preparing too early? Say you're not taking MCAT for another 2 years.
No, I don't think so. But the way you do it is not, when you're preparing early, you're just getting the information together. You're getting a good, the way you're preparing early is that you're going to class and doing well in those classes. And then you can take what you can do in tandem if you're really, really, really early. If you're a freshman, this is the best way to do it. So you get that book, those MCAT, those exam practice books, and you go through and you say, what is the most germane thing? What is the most relevant thing to the MCAT that the professor's talking about today? Let me make sure I know that 100%. And guess what? Those professors, they think those same things. It's not coincidence. They think those same things are important. They really do. Because you learn a lot, but only, there's only so much of it that's really, really, like, you should not be able to graduate a biology class without knowing. There's only a certain amount of things. You might learn other things in biology course. Am I right, Doug? If you might learn, you're going to learn a lot of things, but there's only a certain amount of things that he has to say, look, I don't feel comfortable giving this person a name unless they know X, Y, and Z. It doesn't have to be everything. And those are the kinds of things that are tested. You're going to learn other things, but those are the kinds of things that are tested. So this helps you. If you're going through the class, this book can help guide your kind of studying for class as well. Go into office hours like I talked about yesterday. Talk to Doug. He's going to help you.